Hello everyone, and welcome to our weekly updates of the Senate election races. Again, expect by early to mid-October I should have a new mic and we'll be uploading videos using that mic. So anyway, as it stands, we're going to be talking about actually a lot of states, I think 6, that I have polls that I feel comfortable at least talking about. As a rule, if a new poll isn't really going to change anything about the state, or I don't think is really interesting enough to talk about, I'm not even going to bother mentioning it in a video. So that's why I haven't been updating the Maryland gubernatorial race, because all polling data suggests that it's basically a safe state for Larry Hogan, and he's not going to lose that election. I have extremely high confidence in that. And now, of course, if polls start showing something different, I will. I'll look at it more in depth, but right now, I'm only going to be looking at things that actually have changed rather than go through and say, well, this is the same as last week because there's no polls of this, so we'll move on from that, right? Anyway, so let's go on into Arizona, where we have a poll from Gravis Marketing showing Martha McSally ahead of Kyrsten Sinema. And the last time Gravis polled this race was between June and July, so it's a couple months, and there's been a massive swing towards McSally over Sinema, and a dramatic decrease in undecided voters. Last time Gravis did this, McSally was 10 points under where she currently is, and Sinema was only 5 points. So that's a net of a 5-point swing in the advantage of McSally, which is about where I personally expected it. I just did my math poorly and thought it would still be in favor of Sinema. I expected the race to swing towards McSally after the primaries. I didn't expect it would go in her favor. Now, I'm still going to only tilt this to the Democrats, and this is an infamous case of my predictions tending to lag behind what some other people might say according to polls. It's like, oh my god, this person's taking the lead. Well, now it's back in this person's column. No, I like to say, okay, it's one poll. Prove to me it isn't an outlier. You know, if it's significant enough and it's from a pollster that's already polled the race before, I'll weigh it a little bit more heavily. And if it's a pollster I really like Selzer and Company, or yeah, I believe that's the name of it. It's the one that has one of the only polls for the Iowa gubernatorial race. It's that company, and I really like their polls. Their methodology is spot on. I never found anything I can criticize about it. 538 also loves their polls as well. 538 really loves that place. And as you can see, we're going to be digging into a poll later on today. And now we go to Florida. I guess it's 2 new polls. Though I think I looked at this Gravis Marketing poll last time, as well as the St. Pete's poll. But Quinnipiac, let's go down and find the last time Quinnipiac looked at this race. Here we go. Last time they looked was in... Really? That can't be right. Yeah, it is. Last time they looked at this race was in February, and we have a net of... So it goes to a tie, according to Quinnipiac, from 46 to 42. So it's 3-point gain to a 7-point gain, so a net of about a 4-point swing in favor of Rick Scott. I could go down and look at this, but it doesn't change the fact that essentially after September or after August of last year, all of a sudden Rick Scott has the majority. But if you want to find a definitive date, I'd say after the start of March this year, Rick Scott definitely has the advantage. However, because of, I think maybe leaning it towards Rick Scott was a bit aggressive, I'm going to put it in the true toss-up column for him and only tilt it towards Rick Scott, because I think that's a bit more fair than what I had been doing. I think it's a little bit more accurate. Now let's go to Indiana, where Joe Donnelly is going up against Mike Braun, and Marist College, I generally trust their polls. It shows the race in favor of Joe Donnelly by a reasonable margin, if you can believe that. I think this is just statistical noise in terms of Lucy Brenton, the Libertarian. I think that's just statistical noise. You're generally going to find about 10 to 20% of people who are going to vote for a third option if you give it to them. It doesn't matter who that third option is. Seriously, polls have been done. I think it's even called the Mickey Mouse effect, if I remember correctly. Because somebody did that with Mickey Mouse, and Mickey Mouse got 20% in a poll. Anyway, so 43 to 40 in that one, and that's a similar gap if we include the Libertarian, and we have a similar gap if we don't include the Libertarian between registered and likely voters. And for me, while I've been leaning this race towards Donnelly, again, I'm going to lag this because my predictions always tend to lag. I don't like to overcorrect because of one poll. I want more proof that Joe Donnelly is actually ahead. So we're only going to tilt this to Mike Braun, okay? And now let's go to Missouri, where actually, let's ignore all of those. Ignore that one. Here, okay. Missouri has been almost completely polled by partisan pollsters. Unfortunately for us, Marist hasn't done this race before, but interestingly enough, the registered voter shows more Republican support than the likely voter, which is really weird. And something that shouldn't, again, I think this is statistical noise. The Japheth Campbell. Yeah, this is statistical noise. And as should be expected, he takes away from Hawley because Libertarians tend to caucus with the Republicans. Though there is a loss of Democrat support as well, it's more heavily felt on the Republican side. Actually, very heavily felt on the Republican side. That's 3 points, that's 7 points. That's 8 points, and that's 3 points. So, yeah. But this does show that Hawley has some momentum. I'm going to tilt this race to Claire McCaskill. Again, I want proof that there has been a shift in the race. This is not going to be easy for McCaskill to win the state of Missouri, but it is definitely possible. So we're going to go to Tennessee, where in the most recent Marist College poll, which Marist College has not covered this race before this year, or during this cycle, at least according to Wikipedia. This is just the easy access for me. Though I do like what Real Clear Politics does. I like to see the internal polls sometimes, just because, or the partisan polls. Anyway, so Marsha Blackburn is shown as down to Phil Bredesen in both the registered voter and likely voter model. And now we're actually getting reasonable amounts of undecided voters. Again, I'm going to lag this behind where a lot of people will probably put it, where they'll say, well, that's proof that Bredesen is ahead. I want to see more. You know, he's pulled ahead of Blackburn the entire time, but I've thought about it this way. Tennessee is a historically red state. They don't tend to vote for Democrats, though I've been giving Bredesen a much better chance because he's a popular Democrat, you know, a popular former governor running for an open seat in a Democrat wave year. I've just been skeptical of whether all of that combined is enough to overturn the fact that it is still a red state. Okay? So it's not even my gut, it's just I didn't think it was enough. I thought it was enough to make it extremely competitive, maybe not enough to put it over the top. But, and even then, I've still predicted it to go to Bredesen a few times. Right now, I want to see if Bredesen can make that gap up. And so far it looks like he can, and if I see another poll or two, nonpartisan poll or two, come out showing Bredesen ahead, I will probably flip that to tilts Democrat. But this is a true toss-up race. At the moment, I still favor McSally, but not because I think the polls are wrong. It's because within the margin of error, and my predictions tend to lag. Okay, just understand that. So this is an interesting poll. Tim, that a lot of people say is we got this Signal/Pool House poll from late August showing Tim Kaine only 4 to 5 points ahead of Corey Stewart. I have reason to be skeptical of this one, so I decided I'm going to dig into this one. And I looked at this before I started recording, and I want to talk to you guys about it. Number one, sure, they posted this, but they don't give the question breakdown, they don't do anything. But let's go through their analysis, okay? Let's just show you why I'm going to be very hesitant to even bother using it. Okay, 1,200 likely voters, that's reasonable. I'm not going to, it's a decent amount. And here's who they interviewed, or more specifically how it was weighted, okay? To where self-identified Republicans would be weighted for 30%. Sometimes you won't get the exact sample you want just by calling, and you'll need to weight responses. Anyway, so this is their how they weighted it or got the respondents. 30% Republican, 38% Independent, and 31% Democrat. That seems reasonable to me. There's still a lot of very moderate Republicans that vote Democrat up in the Nova area. Just like there are a lot of Democrats who vote Republican in the South. They never bothered to switch their party affiliation. However, they've also modeled for low Republican turnout that more closely matches other publicly released surveys, where Republicans are weighted for 24%, Democrats 29%, and Independents 40%. And if we go up, the race between Tim Kaine and Corey Stewart, they say is 5%. With their low Republican turnout model, the gap widens to 51 to 42. And they mentioned that this is better than where Ed Gillespie was polling against Mark Warner in 2014. And interestingly enough, both of these models show a very similar amount of support for Tim Kaine as other polls do. The difference is that Corey Stewart gets a lot more support in this poll than he does in other polls, which, okay. They say the generic ballot is essentially dead even with 47% Republican, 48% Democrat, and they show Trump is only only 5 points underwater here in this state. And looking at it, I would love, again, I want a question breakdown. But I don't think I'm going to get it. I'm not going to weigh this one heavily. I'm still considering this race safe for Tim Kaine. I have very high confidence in that at the moment, and that poll's not really going to change anything. So, as it stands, this is where I see the Senate election map this year, and this is where what the map would look like provided my predictions wind up being correct, and I'm 100% correct on them. I doubt I'll be 100% correct, but hey, I'm trying to shoot for it, okay? Basically, any state that's a tilt or a lean, I would recommend watching, because I could be very wrong about those states. And it's important to admit that you could be wrong. Anyway, I want to thank you all for watching. I hope you had a nice day. I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy. Bye.